First of all, I will note this for the press. I'll go ahead and give some comments. I'll be followed by Dr. Marvia Jones, our health director here in Kansas City, Mrs. Monica Henderson, who tells us the story, the impact of gun violence in our community, Melissa Johnson, my director of public safety here at Kansas City, and then I'll come back and answer any questions from the press you may have, but we'll do that at the end. I want to start by recognizing and acknowledging our young people here. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you to our kids. Thank you to our young people for being here, because fundamentally, they are the reason that we are here today. To wear orange, to raise awareness of the thousands of lives lost and the people impacted by gun violence in our community. But we're also here to show appreciation for those who are on our streets every day, responding to the calls at shootings, providing services and supports to victims, families, and loved ones. I also want to make sure we show some appreciation for our first responders, our police officers, our EMTs, our firefighters. Let's give them a round of applause. In Kansas City, we also have another set of folks who respond to almost every situation. There are mothers from Mothers in Charge who show up to almost every shooting scene. Mothers in Charge, thank you. Thank you. Partners for Peace provide support for more than 500 people last year, and they continue to have a positive impact each day. Aim for Peace has held nearly 4,000 community outreach events, meetings, and presentations, and nearly 200 hospital responses. We recognize that we work around the clock in Kansas City, not just to prevent violent crime, but to make sure that we're addressing it as the trauma it truly is in our community. And I love hearing a baby, too. I love having a baby here. We're also wearing orange here in Kansas City and around the country today to call for a future that is free of gun violence. Orange symbolizes the value of each person's life, and we wear it to honor those who have been killed, who have been wounded, who have been impacted in any way by violence, and to call for an end to this terrible crisis. We will never give up on making Kansas City safer, and we will continue to address and fight back against gun violence each and every day. We have a lot more work to do, but we have made some progress in the right direction, not nearly where we need to be. Currently, homicides in Kansas City are down 22% from last year, down 15% from the 5-year average. But we continue hard work to address it each day. I was able to attend our first Save KC Standing Up Against Violence in Kansas City. I was able to attend our first Save KC call-in meeting, which was a great success. And in case you are wondering, what we do with that is we break bread with those who have associates, who have friends, who have partners who have been impacted by violence. And we say, we have a way out for you. We have a way that avoids violent crime. We don't want to see you killed. We don't want to see you shot. We don't want to see you in jail. And we sat down with them, the police chief, the health director, so many others were there to say that your life is truly valuable. Here in Kansas City, we're going to make sure that everybody knows we value them. Not just when they're 5, not when they're 10, not when they're 15, but when they're 20, when they're 25, no matter what you're dealing with, we continue to care about you and think about you each day. I also want to take a moment before I turn it over to our health director to talk about how we are addressing gun violence in every place that it impacts us. We hear a lot about shootings in entertainment districts and broader community events, but I think about those who have addressed domestic violence in our community. In the past year, I had a family member of my own who lost her life in domestic abuse and in gun violence. We need to make sure that we are creating outlets and opportunities for everyone who needs somewhere to go to be safe, everyone who recognizes that a gun in the home can be one of the most dangerous things around. We are there to make sure that we are there for people who are looking for opportunities to get out. And that is something that we will continue to do each and every day. So we consider today a moment to recognize the impact and the importance of everyone's life. We stand up for our victims, but we also say, as the shirts behind me say, enough. Enough of gun violence, enough of this trauma that impacts our community each day, and let's have a Kansas City where our kids can grow up not worried about shootings, not worried about gun violence, but focusing on what's important and what's special in the world. How they can read, how they can write, how they can have fun, and how they can become great adults one day. So thank you all so much for being here. I now turn it over to our Director of Public Health, Dr. Marvia Jones.
Thank you, Mayor Lucas, and I'm really happy to be here today. Gun violence, as the mayor already mentioned, affects far too many Kansas Cityans. We know that the impact of that violence extends way past the individuals who are immediately impacted through loss of life or loss of function of their physical health. We know that the physical, mental, and social emotional impacts extend to the families that have lost them, as well as the outsized impacts on their communities at large. We know that heart attacks and stroke and birth outcomes are impacted by violence rates in the community. So I'm happy to be serving as a health director of a public health department that is supported in our work to look at violence as an issue that we should be a part of the discussion of. We appreciate all of the efforts of our partners, and I'm honored to oversee the program Aim for Peace and its work to be out every day in the community working with people who are at highest risk for violence. And this, as the mayor alluded to earlier, it is a round-the-clock operation. So these are people who live within their neighborhoods, they don't carry a badge, but they are out every day intervening and attempting to diffuse situations that could lead to violence. It's an honor to be a part of a health department that has a comprehensive approach to improving community health of Kansas Cityans. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for being our partners in this work.
Thank you so much.
And now I'm going to invite Monica Henderson to the stand. Thank you very much. Who is going to talk about the personal effects that gun violence has on so many families here in our community.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm standing here 4 years after I lost my son to gun violence. I still cry every single day. This morning was really hard to get up and put on orange. You know, I've always been a supporter of gun laws, but to have to put on orange and have to come out here is totally different. When you sit first row on a funeral, it's totally different. It changes your life forever. You know, the saying says, time heals everything. It does not heal grief. It does not heal grief. I talk to parents who have, their kids have been gone 20 years and they still cry to this day. It's just so many different, like Mayor Lucas said, there's so many different aspects to it. Like children who have lost their parents, who have to grow up without a parent. They grow up angry because their parents was taken by gun violence. And then, so we have these youth in our community that we expect to go to school and be normal youth, but nobody's reaching out to say, hey, it's okay, we here. Even the kids that are losing classmates. My daughter just graduated from Kaufman. They had a whole memorial for the little girl who lost her life. The 12-year-old that was in her house. Just in her room and lost her life. A bullet came through the window. My friend, I have a close friend who is burying her son right now. He's a very well-known rapper, Gun Kiwi. Funerals going on right now. Like, it happens anywhere to anybody. You don't have to be at a parade. You don't have to be at a concert. She was at home in her bed, and the bullet came through. My son was right in the backseat of a car, asked me to go to Walmart, and somebody shot up the car. So it does not matter. We don't live by the gun. We don't own a gun. We don't own a gun. I lost my son to gun violence. So it's real. It's real. And I just ask that people support before you're on this side of the fence, because you don't want to be on this side of the fence. And I just appreciate everybody being out here.
Yes, thank you. And before we get started on the Solidarity Walk, I definitely want to open it up for any questions for the mayor or Dr. Jones.
Yeah, any questions that you might have?
Yeah, Mayor, you talk about the homicide rate being down,
Right.
but at the same 5-year average, non-fatal shootings were higher than they've ever been in this city. So what is something tangible that people can walk away? Because just because you don't die, you could be the 6-year-old that was on 33rd and Bells riding your bicycle and now you have a bullet in your head. What's something tangible that people can walk away from today knowing that the city is working to be safer?
I'll answer the statistical question first and then on the tangibles. As we all recognize, we had several very significant shooting events earlier in the year, including the Super Bowl parade, where you had roughly 24 persons shot, even more than that. What we have seen in the months since then is actually that we have seen, if not a declination, then not that same level of high increase in the time since. But I will say, not to be overly technical, it is still incredibly problematic. I think the story we just shared was an example of that. Every shooting, every homicide, every incident is a problem. So don't get it twisted. We are never celebrating a lower number of homicides. One homicide is too many. What we're trying to do is make sure that we are factual and explaining to people where we're going, where trends are, and where we need to work. And frankly, why we care and why we keep coming out. Sometimes people ask us, why y'all keep doing stuff? Why do you have new programs? Is it ever going to change? I'm here to say it can, it will, and it must. That's why we're here today. And so in terms of the tangibles, you have a few different things, one of which that we are doing better than I would say I have seen in my entire time, almost 9 years now, in city council as the mayor. And it is, first, organizations are all working together. You are not seeing a fight right now of a police chief, prosecutor, mayor, anybody like that. We are all sitting on the same page. We put an op-ed out the other day saying how we are all standing behind the Save KC program, how we are all trying to make sure we're working on intervention. We're all making sure we can recruit more police officers by paying them more. We're all making sure that we are standing up and saying we do need to prosecute. All of it is part of the solution. If there is a mistake we have probably made in recent years, is that sometimes everybody thought we could go it alone, right? That it's just one solution or it's another. It is not a public health or public safety or public official type of solution. It is everybody. And let me say something else that I think is important and tangible. The reason you have people here, the reason we had people here last year, the reason we have people who continue to care, is it's not just government people. It's neighborhoods and it's communities. The sad thing about certain parts of our city, and increasingly it's too much of our city, and I'm not going to make people do this, but you can go into too many rooms and say by show of hands, who has been impacted by gun violence? Who knows someone who has been impacted by gun violence? Who has lost someone close to them? How many classrooms in our public schools, not just in Kansas City District, but in lots of them, have a child who has been touched by gun violence or has lost a parent or a friend or a sibling to gun violence? Ms. Johnson and I met with a kid who just graduated from high school the other day, who came to meet with me about finding a job. And he talked about not one, but two family members in recent years impacted by gun violence. A brother who was murdered, a child in the home who was killed by a gun. That's too much. And so that's why we are looking to make a change. So the tangible is get involved. Get involved with us. We have programs here at the city. Save KC, Stand Against Violence. Call 311, ask us about this. Because you know what? This is as big an issue as any in Kansas City right now. And I'll be honest with you while I stand here. I don't need to talk about sports stadiums right now. I care a lot more about public safety, public health, and how we stand up for teenagers here. Yes, sir.
I did want to ask, you mentioned that your own family has been victimized by domestic violence, and there was an incident real early yesterday morning. We came to find out that the home where this happened is actually owned by one of the program directors for Aim for Peace, where there were 4 people shot, including 2 young kids who were under 18. What's your thought about that?
So, I can't confirm anything that you've said. If it relates to a city employee, we'll certainly look into that and have whatever answers in a full investigation relating to it. What I would say is this. We're here to recognize the trauma, the pain of gun violence broadly. Gun violence has impacted many people. It impacts our city employees, it impacts school teachers, it impacts everyone, it impacts kids in our community. And so what we are here to say is, how do we get a stop to gun violence? What we see is that intervention, that engaging with people, that making sure that we're doing the work to address the traumas that are in our community are the way that we can make some difference long term. And so I will always let investigations be investigations. You can ask the Jackson County prosecutor on issues. If ever there's an HR issue with the city, then ultimately we'll learn about that. That'll bear itself out. But in the meantime, I'm here standing against violence broadly in our community for everyone. And that for us is going to be the issue long term. Go ahead.
Sure, yeah, if I can follow up. When you first ran for this office,
Yep.
you said your goal was to have under 100 homicides per year in Kansas City, and unfortunately, the last 4 years, each of the last 4 years are the 4 worst in the history of the city. Last year set a record. Yes, we're lower than we were, but we still have 62, and we're not halfway through the year. We are also at a point where we're under 1,100 police officers at KCPD, and my understanding is that the budget has it for about 200 more. I don't know if we're going to reach that goal this year or not, like 1285. what are your thoughts about, where we're at since you've been in office and where we're at with the police department?
I think I'm proud of the work that we've done, not just in the budget that I proposed, but in work with the Board of Police Commissioners to increase police salaries by 30%, getting us to a new starting salary of $65,000 a year. I have confidence in our police department command staff that is working hard on recruiting to make sure we can have enough officers to address issues. But as somebody who had lunch with a Kansas City public school teacher who teaches at Paseo High School the other day, there's a lot of steps that we need to take. We need officers. We need to invest in teachers. We need to invest in counselors and social workers. And that's why this city is trying to make sure we're doing all of the above. We did not get to this problem in one place. It was not just that we had too few of one thing or another. We got to this problem because of broad-based concerns. The health director mentions them. Poverty, unaddressed trauma. I mean, if we're talking about unaddressed trauma, think about the fact that in too many places in Kansas City, we're asking a child, after there's been a shooting on their block, to come to school the next week. We have sometimes a child murdered in a classroom and everybody's seen there the next day, and we're kind of like, wow, we've lost them. And I don't think we have always enough resources. So this is the city saying we need to make sure, and the city isn't just City Hall. It's the city, it's the community, it's the region, saying how can we make sure that broadly we do more? And we do it collaboratively, and we do it with working with every organization possible. So am I happy with where we are? Absolutely not. Who could be? But we need to make sure that we're treated like the epidemic that it is. And every time I've dealt with issues, whether it's healthcare or anything under the sun, what we don't do is sit back and just say that's the way it is. We have seen American cities like New York City, which went from roughly 2,000 homicides a year in the late 1980s and early 1990s to get down to about 500 a year. That's still too many for them, but that tells me that we can definitely cut the numbers that we have, and I continue to have confidence in our ability to do so. Any other questions for you? Yes, ma'am. Speak up, one.
Is there any way that City Hall can pass an ordinance on gun safe storage without wrangling the feathers of those assholes in Jefferson City?
The short answer to your question is that's unlikely that we can pass a safe storage ordinance. Our read is that we're preempted by the Missouri legislature in Jefferson City. I think that preemption is unfortunate, whether it relates to a safe storage law or other laws that can keep us safer. The people closest to the problem are closest to the solutions. And I think the people of Kansas City, by and large, are tired of gun violence in our community. We would love to have all the tools possible to help fight gun violence, and we ask our friends in Jefferson City to give us that opportunity. Thank you all. Go, yes.
All right, appreciate it.
Yep.
So just this week, I had an opportunity to interview all 4 candidates that are running for Jackson County prosecutor, including your public safety director. Say you're all on the same page. That's not what I'm getting from these candidates. We're hearing that they feel like the drug crimes are not being prosecuted aggressively enough, property crimes where guns are stolen out of cars, that
Sure.
type of thing. What's your response?
I'm not a candidate for Jackson County prosecutor. We're not here to talk about it. There's a prosecutor right down the block who you can ask all those questions to. I welcome you to do that. And there'll be an election in a few weeks, and you can ask all about that. Thank you.
Please, one more thing.
Malik, I'll let you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just your message to Kansas City. We see the shirts that say enough is enough. We went over about what you guys are doing and the tangible things, get involved, all of that good stuff. But what's your message to children, the kids that have to go to school and they
Sure.
lose a classmate or someone dies on their block?
Sure. I have probably 2 messages. One, that your life is valuable, that we care about you. I think a lot of people think that it is just the nature of things, that we have homicides, that we have teenagers, 20-somethings, kids dying. That is not the nature of things. We care about you. We want you to be safe. If you are one who carries guns or is engaged in gunplay, put the guns down. That to me is the primary message. The secondary message is this. I grew up in this city. I grew up in a fairly violent Kansas City back in the 1990s and 1980s. I believe a change can come. I believe a change will come. And with our whole community working together, we will see that change happen for a safer Kansas City long term. Thank you all so much.